The ABC faces the challenges all publishers and broadcasters face, to not just be an oracle, espousing the facts and analysis as we see it, but creating space for our audiences to speak, to share their knowledge and insights, their creativity and ingenuity, to embed a user-generated content experience at the same time as holding on to our brand, our values, our integrity. We recognise that younger audiences with so much more media choice than their parents or grandparents lack brand loyalty. They will simply pursue the information and entertainment they want from wherever they can get it, whenever they can get it. And further to user-generated content, many young people every day are creating and sharing media, simply through social media and sharing videos, through to far more elaborate and complex creations. The key to all this is content, of course. Do you have what people want to see, read and hear? And then will they want to talk about it, share it with others, respond to it positively or negatively, engage with it? And can they experience the content where they are? At the ABC, it really doesn't matter to us how people experience the content we create or curate. What matters to us is that we are putting this compelling content into the media mix that people find engaging, compelling, unique, distinctive, and that we make sure that there are no barriers to them seeing it. Part of this transformation internally is a view about our online content. Unlike other media organisations, we don't need to bring audiences back to our homepage so we can sell traffic to advertisers to get the clicks to monetise. More than 8 million Australians are now spending more and more time each month on Facebook. And at the ABC, we're creating new widgets so people can take the ABC content they like, content they help paid for, and allow them to share it through their own social networks. Our audience will become our distributors. In terms of media history again, it is revolutionary not to be using all your efforts to bring your audiences to your papers, to your radio stations, to your television network. It is more a model like the music industry, where you give your work to others and they can take it and experience it as often as they like, wherever they like. At the ABC at times we're gripped by a fear that we will not have done enough, that we will not have been nimble, that we will have been too protective and defensive, that we will not have been fast enough or bold enough to meet the challenges of the times. So we are re-engineering our newsrooms to deliver quality news when our audience wants it, not just when we schedule it. Turning our local radio stations into media hubs full of content generated for broadband, user-generated content, being a community town square. Internally, we're declaring war on silos and insulated thinking, being audience, not organisationally centred. It affects the way we organise ourselves, the way we work together and cooperate, the way we partner with others, the way we cede some space, some control to our audiences to remain relevant and compelling. If we are to survive as any more than a shell, a legacy broadcaster, an empire in decline ourselves, this is what we must do. It is easy to lose sight of the fact as we wrestle through this transformation that we're hardly the first industry to face such challenges and to undergo such change. Hardly the first set of organisations to face a reality that our old ways of thinking will not get us to the future. Einstein said that problems cannot be solved by the same level of thinking that created them. So we will need to find new ways of thinking. Take IBM, whose CEO in the 1950s, Thomas Watson, was said to have predicted that the world would only ever need 5 computers. Yet IBM became the company that delivered the computer revolution. And IBM's CEO in the 1990s, Lou Gerstner, took the company out of the mainframe business, overruled plans to break it up, embraced the opportunities of the internet, and turned the company once more again into something different, this time into an IT services business. For those now in media empires, for those who want to survive, endure, be part of the future, there's little time to be wistful. There's little time to be angry about how things have worked out. They were great days, but they have gone. Certainly there are things that greatly concern us. Is there a business model for newspapers? How will Australian stories be told in a global content era? How will we share as a community if there's no shared media of experience? Where will our commons be? And certainly we see ourselves at the ABC play an important role in meeting some of these needs. But we all know, for sure, that there is a greater thirst for knowledge, for insight, for entertainment, for engagement, for viewing and sharing media today than at any other time in history. Never has the audience been bigger. Never has news travelled faster and been more accessible in more places more quickly. Never has a news story, a big news story, reached larger audiences in more ways. Ways of telling stories, making them immediate and compelling and alive, has never been more vibrant. The opportunity to connect and engage has never been more exciting. Gibbon reminds us that Rome didn't fall in a day. For some media organisations, there may be too many overwhelming forces to stave off the inevitable. But for now, for those of us in the media and those who lead the media, there is an understanding that until that day comes, our destiny is in our hands to take advantage of all that's before us. So with so much we don't know, is there anything we do? Can we make any informed guesses about the characteristics and capabilities of those organisations most likely to find renewal, to reinvent, to sustain, to rebuild for the years ahead? And you have a right to be asking by now, am I offering any solutions? There are few certainties, but one thing is certain, that no solutions will be found through legacy thinking. So let me now make a number of hesitant suggestions. Number one, the only media organisations that will survive will be those who know and accept that all the rules have changed. That the media business has gone from being one of the most simple to one of the most complex. Only those who can now see what many generals appreciate only after a devastating loss, that the tactics that won them the last battle might just be the ones that deliver them defeat in the next. Survivors will be those who face up to how the world is, not how they want the world to be, and who are determined to secure a future in that new media world, not just squeeze out a few more years' profits, just milk the business till the CEO's retirement and the board moves on. It's transformational thinking, and only transformational thinking, that will bring a true critical analysis of the business model, like whether you should own printing presses, whether you should print every day, whether you should move to a totally on-demand market, whether your hero brand is your online brand. And even if you're not able to make these moves today, it will get you thinking about being ready to move into that space in the future. At the ABC, we are thinking about a world of 10,000 channels that you can see on your television set, not the 5 that we grew up with delivered into our living room. And we're trying to think about what that means for television and what tonight's television schedule means when at the touch of a button on your remote control or your mobile, you can watch any program that we've aired in the last 2 weeks on your television set. More than that, we're asking, what is television? What is radio in this era of global on-demand content? And in doing so, we're asking questions that address nothing less than the very foundations on which the ABC has been built over the course of 77 years. You have to be ready to be truly bold. We were successful in persuading government to get behind our efforts to create more Australian drama, yet at the same time we're looking at future forms of narrative, with initiatives in games whose stories appeal so powerfully to the generations coming through. Why? Because we want the ABC to be part of their lives, just as it was for their parents and grandparents. The second thing I think we know is that successful organisations will be endlessly inquisitive about the new, understanding that no one knows where the next breakthrough idea or technology will come from. You don't just need to find creative partners, you need to let them do what they do, not just purchase them and crush them, as many leading media organisations do, but give them space in strategic alliances to inform you, to help build your understanding, to help you find new audiences in new ways. To seek and be excited about finding and working with people who might turn your organisation upside down. To sit in meetings with people half your age, and to listen and to act. And those new partnerships may involve more than technological hookups. It might be around fundamental things such as consortiums of newspapers and broadcasters and non-profits, working together to create a critical mass required for real investigative journalism, a model that's emerging in the United States, to be part of something rather than owning everything. And it can mean a different approach to innovation, and I admit that this is easier as a public broadcaster. Being willing to innovate and take risks so that we can produce a social benefit through the ABC is a responsibility that comes with not having to produce a financial profit. We invest not because there'll be a profit there, but because an audience might be there someday. And that is why, unapologetically, we've embraced Twitter, uncertain if it's a revolution or a fad, particularly since the gap between the hype and the has-been has never been so narrow. Yet Twitter might just be where our future audiences and communities may choose to spend their media time, and we need to be there with our audiences. The third thing I think we can confidently say is successful organisations will be willing to empower their audiences to contribute, to create, to share media. These organisations will cede power to gain engagement and respect. They will be willing to let other voices be heard. They will learn how to protect brand integrity whilst entrusting their brand to others. To a degree, everyone is doing this, but the greatest success will come when an audience long treated with an oligopolist disdain is treated with real respect, and the contribution is seen as a valued contribution. The simple fact is that young audiences, the future of every media organisation, including the ABC, have the tools and now the experience and the expectation to create and share media. They do it with their friends. They want to do it with us. It is how they connect and belong. And the media organisation that doesn't make audience contribution a central part of their strategy fades to black. We recognised immediately that by mixing content that comes from within the ABC with content from without, the Pro-Am model, we end up with the most powerful content possible. And we're still working on getting the balance right. Yet it's only by maintaining a strong editorial role that will reinforce and not undermine the ABC brand. Even Wikipedia's Jimmy Wales acknowledges that the secret is in the edit, which might explain why an aggregating site, which has acquired such a huge community of users, the Huffington Post, lists 62 editors and just 4 reporters on their site. We'd suit for a different ratio ourselves. But we have to come to terms with the undeniable fact that for the scoop on many news events, we cannot hope to compete with the audience. We need to team up with them. They have the time, the opportunity, and particularly now with that powerful instant publishing double act, Twitter and TwitPeak, they have the numbers. Briefly, number 4, part of the protection of media assets will come through diversification, as has been the case with News and the Washington Post. Commercial media who found themselves long in assets greatly threatened by this revolution, like newsprint and free-to-air television, with no other growth story, will remain greatly challenged. And finally, number 5. The great challenge on all of this is to start within, on areas within your organisation of cultures and behaviours, recognising that your own old internal fiefdoms come from another world. I'm constantly struck by conversations with people across a range of media organisations who would testify that despite all the revolution taking place in the media world, the old line is true. We have seen the enemy and it is us. That in our organisations, if only we could agree on a strategy that was widely understood and stick with it. And if only we worked together, putting all the old internal battles and turf wars behind us, we would give ourselves a far better chance. At the ABC, we are constantly at work on this. thinking through what it means to be a public broadcaster in a digital age, working out what it means to reach more Australians in more ways more often, to enrich every Australian's life, to be the town square. And we are committed to learning how to work with each other, to respect each other, to learn from each other. It has generated some comment, some cynicism, but finally I think the establishment of key organisational values at the ABC, integrity, respect, collegiality, innovation, has helped us think about how we need to work together to deliver our future. The ABC is currently 77 years old. I expect we will see 100. And when we see 100, I suspect historians will look back on these years, these closing years of the decade, and say, this was the time the media world shook, where business models failed, where technology empowered, and when new opportunities erupted, where new futures emerged through all the despair, all the loss, all the uncertainty. I fear I've ended up taking as long as given. So let me conclude here with a line I often use at the ABC. The words of John Shah, who said, "The future's not a place we're going, it's a place we're making. And the paths to the future are made, not found. And the process of making them changes both us and our final destination." Despite all that's happening to them, despite all that's happening now, the fate of our organisations lies with us, our strategic insight, how we work together, our courage, our boldness, our imagination. The fate of our organisations, our industry, our future, will be determined finally by us. Thank you very much.
Mark, thank you very much for a very honest assessment of, I think, very important issues of our time, not just here in Australia, but I've just been on a conference in Europe and they are exactly discussing the same issues. And I think it was a fantastic and fascinating talk, and thank you very much. My name is Ingrid Volkmar. I'm the acting head of the Media and Communications program here at the University of Melbourne in the School of Culture and Communication, and I've been asked to moderate the question and answer session. We have only 10 minutes, so may I just invite you to raise your hand, and we have, I think, people here coming with microphones, so you will be audible. There's somebody in the back there?
Yeah. You spoke about re-engineering your newsrooms, and you also spoke about incorporating user-generated content with internally produced content. Can you just talk a bit about how this has impacted your news coverage? Like, just how much is ABC's news coverage, how much of it is influenced by user-generated content and social media?
Yeah, I think... I used to find when I was a newspaper editor, you'd pull together the news list of the day, the stories you'd want to work on, but you knew that actually your reporters probably knew more about the stories than you do, but the audience really knew what was going on. And actually the process was trying to find out from those out there, you know, what was really happening. And I think we have numerous examples of how the audience now with the tools to text in, to send photographs in, to send news in, provides a rich reservoir of material. Some of the user-generated content from the February bushfires is astounding. And our new Black Saturday site, abc.net.au/Black Saturday, is a remarkable collection of content that our journalists have created side by side with the content that our audience captured for us, where they were in the midst of it all. When the dust storm descended on Sydney a few weeks ago, the photographs were astounding that our audiences contributed. And mixed with our ability to edit, our ability to curate that content, it's a far richer audience experience than anything that our journalists could have done on their own. I think the re-engineering of the newsroom is a complex thing. The social contract used to be, the news is on at 7 o'clock. Get home at 7, we'll give you the news. If you're not home at 7, don't complain to us, just get home on time tomorrow night and catch up as best you can. Now our audience has an expectation that they will get the very best ABC news available at the moment they want it, not at the moment that it's convenient for us. And we had many a great story that had been completed and ready to show for hours before we could show it, waiting for the clock to turn 7. And so now there's an expectation that we are able to deliver that content online. We certainly do it on radio. Increasingly, we're doing it on television at a time the audience wants. And yes, that's a change in our news process is quite significant, but work that's well underway.
All right, we have, I think, time for 2 more questions. There's one here, and then there's another one over there.
How do you see the future of the ABC in Asia, for example, through the Australian network channel?
Yeah. The ABC has been an international broadcaster for 70 years, and that in the main has been through Radio Australia, which continues with great strength and has done vital work in the region during the natural disasters in recent days. And in more recent years, Australia Network that broadcasts into 44 countries, reaching audiences of millions every week. We deliver that Australia Network service under contract to the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. That contract comes up for renewal from time to time, and we'll be making a strong case to the government that the ABC is by far the best equipped broadcaster to deliver international broadcasting. If you look around the world, the G20 countries are dramatically expanding their level of international broadcasting as a soft diplomatic arm. And normally, in the vast majority of cases, it's the public broadcaster that's delivering that. And so we are keen to expand our footprint. I've spent a lot of time in China trying to get landing rights so we can show Australia Network in China. We're growing significantly in India, and we have significant plans to expand that service if the funding is available.
And there was another question over there.
Thank you. I would say that my understanding is that in the past, all this media were, I would say, coming to us very like, I am XYZ, listen me, I am BBC. You have to listen me because I am. Yeah? And now it's happening everything so different. This media should monitor actually like internet and where are sites with most hits where people are discussing what is now currently for them important. Try to, through professional level which they are, helping them, I would say, with this discussion. It is not other way around. I have discussion, listen me.
Yeah.
It has to be other way around completely.
I think there is a change that's happening and challenging for broadcasters that are used to being the only voice and recognising that there are more voices and more points of view. And I think part of the great ability of the internet and user-generated content is to create forums where a wide range of views can be heard. I think one of the interesting things about the internet is that you get this extraordinary data of who is reading what stories. And I think part of the challenge for broadcasters and newspapers is not simply to be a mirror back on the audience, but still to set an agenda and still to be able to ensure that there's a full range of views being heard. But I think, yes, we were the only voice. We're no longer the only voice. We have to recognise that, and I think all media organisations have to recognise that.
Is that a very quick question or? Okay, very quick question. One last one. Absolutely last.
Thank you for your wonderful address, Mr. Scott. Sir, it's print media that is so threatened, as I understand, and not electronic at this stage. It's print media that's so threatened. My newsagent tells me that the Women's Weekly is collapsing by 1% a month circulation, and newspapers certainly seem to be falling.
Yeah, I think a lot of attention's been around print, but by no means is all the challenge in print. I think regional radio is really struggling now and will struggle more as fast broadband hits those communities. Free-to-air broadcasters are being hit significantly as the size of the audience shrinks because they have more choices through pay television or time being spent online. And so I think all traditional media outlets are being hit because the business model that sustained them, and the business model was basically that very few people could print, very few people could broadcast, so they could charge big prices for advertisers to attract those audiences. But now as many people can publish, many people can broadcast, the traditional business models are being broken down. And whilst there's a lot of focus on print and can newspapers survive, I think it is all traditional media that is undergoing this revolution.
Okay, that's the end of the question and answer session. For those of you who have more questions, there will be a streamed content or streamed lecture. This lecture is being streamed, as you see, and that will be available, that content will be available on the university's website tomorrow. I'm not so sure if there is like a discussion forum as well. I don't think we have that yet, but that might be something, for the next lecture, so that people can then still debating about these important issues. Thank you very much.